Think of a time when you experienced a conversation that left you with a new perspective, or perhaps an inquiry, or you might have felt that something has shifted in you after that conversation. Maybe it helped you gain a new level of clarity, or moved you to take action. That was a coaching conversation. Hello and welcome to the Coaching Conversation podcast. This is your host, Salah Al-Leiti. I am excited to have with me today Mohab and Hakim. Mohab is a good friend, fellow coach, and has been in many different roles in the Agile space. He's been a Scrum Master, coach, mentor, technical manager. So I'm really delighted to have him here with me. Mohab, welcome.
Thank you, Salah, very much. I'm delighted, and I'm so happy to be part of this wonderful podcast and looking forward to a very interesting conversation.
It's been a while. I've been trying to record something together for a while, and now it's finally happening.
I'm glad we made it work.
Yeah, we worked together in the past, and I think it's been years since we worked together. But I want to get started with you telling your story. What's your story? How did you end up in Agile and coaching in this area? How did you get here?
That's an interesting story. So let me start from the beginning. I promise I'm not going to take so long for that. For me, I'm actually away from work and away from, the professional career. I'm a horseback riding instructor and a rider when I was younger than that. So I started back when I was 9 years old, starting getting exposed to my trainers and how they coach and dealing with a horse that doesn't speak. It's all about the emotions. It's all about the connections between you and the horse. And I started building this skill to understand how you can understand, as an example, the horse that you're dealing with is nervous, is afraid, is not able to provide you the maximum potential that this horse can provide you. And that was kind of the starting point, or the seed that started building for me. I think I take this skill and start seeing how I can help and get the unknown potential from a human being as well as something that's pretty important. So that kind of the starting point in the horseback riding. I started and when I was 9 years old. I was riding till I was about 19, and then after that things started getting busy and work and all that, so I stopped riding for a while, and then I came back to horseback riding as a trainer. When I came back as a trainer, there was also a mind shift there, because the coaching piece started getting introduced into my world about maybe 15 years or so, when I started into the project management. So I'm originally from Egypt. I started my journey over there, worked in a British company in Egypt, and then moved to the Middle East in Dubai, stayed there for 4 years, worked with the government over there, and had some interesting projects over there, and then moved to the US in 2010. And when I moved over here, I got introduced also to the idea of not waterfall, but there is also an agile practice that can also make things more easier and more faster and more cost effective, and we can be more flexible and adaptable. And this is where also I started working with teams from a software development perspective, got introduced into technical piece as well. So there's a mix of a lot of different backgrounds and experiences that collectively put Mohab that now.
That's a lot of interesting background, and you're bringing a lot of experience from different areas. So I know the idea of horseback riding and training horses is very interesting, because I know you've dabbled into professional coaching as well. And I know there are some retreats and coaching training that involves horses. It involves being with horses and learning from these majestic animals. So I'm wondering, like, this sort of link between how you shifted from training horses and then into coaching and training individuals and teams, and how did that translate into the new world that you're in now?
That's a great question. So I think, Salah, one of the main important pieces is coaching is not a rushing skill. So if you go in and have a menu of stuff that you need to checklist for each and every one, it's a template that you're using. I think there are going to be a lot of challenges when it comes to the process. And training horses is not a rushing skill as well, because you need to understand, first of all, the behavior of this horse. Surprisingly, each horse have their own unique personalities. It's exactly the same thing like human beings, and you need to understand what is the right approach for each horse. Go a little bit further, each human being, because each one of us has their own sets of skills, have our own challenges, have our own backgrounds, and we need to respect and understand that to be able to move forward and see how we can work together as an individual or as a team or even as an organization to see how we can find the right approach that can work for you, to make sure that we can dig into the untapped potential that are there, and at the same time time for you to see what are the right pieces that you need to put together in order to help you in whatever career or job you are working in. So the linkage here is understanding, first of all, what is the current state, what is the current personality, what are the backgrounds in order for us to move forward and find the right solutions and the right opportunities and asking the right questions so we can go forward to see how we can make things better for both of us.
That resonates a lot with me because I think that's one of the first things that happen in coaching is trying to find where the person is at and how willing are they to try something different. But before that, you mentioned something earlier that is very important, like this idea of connecting with the horse in this case, but also at a human level. That's very important to connect with the person or the organization or with the team and acknowledge what's happening. Acknowledge there's a lot of emotions and feelings that come with change. So how similar or different is that between training horses and coaching people?
To be honest, training in general, not even for horse, training in general, the connections is pretty important. Putting into earning trust. Because if we're working together, I'm your coach, and the trust piece, the connection piece is not there. Anything I'm going to say is not going to resonate 100% for you. That's the first thing. The second thing, if you're not bought into it, nothing is going to happen. So it's important for us to have this connection and understand, as I mentioned to you, what is happening. What is the need behind the need, if you want to call it this way. There is always something that is on the surface, and there is a little bit, if you dig a little bit deeper, there is something else that this is really the piece that we need to dig into and try to work on. So understanding this need behind the need and digging deeper a little bit, establishing this connection, establishing this trust between, as I mentioned to you, if it's an individual, if it's a team, if it's an organization, is pretty important. So we as a team can move forward and see what are the pieces that we need to break into smaller chunks and start working on it in order to establish, the overall ultimate goal of, if you want to call it a transformation or something that is on an individual level that needs to be accomplished for a certain person. So connection, earning trust, I think, is a key success when it comes to the secret sauce, when it comes to coaching ingredient.
Building rapport, trust, and as you said, like connection, finding the person where they are and where they want to go. And that's really important. I'm spending a little bit of time on this idea of training horses and individuals because I find it fascinating is communicating with a creature that doesn't talk back and you're still able to connect with them. Imagine it's different, when the person is, when you connect with person where, can communicate back, or at least, they may not have the words or not the ways to identify how they're feeling, and as a coach you're trying to help them navigate through that. And I know you've worked in the agile space now for a long time as a scrum master, as a coach, as a technical manager, leader. And I wonder, like, from your experience, what have you seen as things that can impede this sort of growth in terms of person finding what is it that they're trying to accomplish, or a team trying to find where they want to go?
So I think your question / your statement has multiple layers. So let me start with the first layer, which is the human animal connection. And I think this is pretty important. Moving from horses, I think dealing with animals in general is something that builds a skill that if someone who's not connected to animals in general might not have this type of skill, which is understanding, how their facial expressions, their eyes, and how they are in pain or they are in need of food or so on. So it gives you this attention to details when it comes to how the person in front of you is reacting. So I wanted to just put a statement there. Then dealing with animals in general, not only horses. Horses are dear to my heart, but I'm talking about animals in general. I think that's a kind of a skill that a lot of people can get just dealing with any of non-human beings, basically.
That's a great point. I just want to highlight that you're talking about like reading the space
Exactly.
or because that happens also with people. People may not say anything, but you can still sense that something is going on.
Exactly. And that takes me to the second point, which is I think a lot of us as human beings, we rush into solutions. And we want to make an impact as soon as we land somewhere else because of how the ecosystem, how the environment is, how everything is fast paced and all that. I think when it comes to coaching, things need to be slowed down a little bit. We need to see understand, read the room, read how people are reacting, read how the team is working together, read the interactions that are happening, the processes that are around the teams, everything that is there in order for us to start understanding the bigger picture and see how we can move forward to the next steps. When it comes to individuals, it's the same idea. As you mentioned, we need to read the body language. Our body language is about 70% of our language in general. So you need to understand how people are reacting when you sit in a room and you find, the louder voice are the ones that are actually making more of the decisions, and the ones that are more into the quieter side might say yes, but they are not really agreeing with what's happening. So reading the room and understanding that is pretty important. And then tapping, as you mentioned, into if you see someone who's not able to express themselves in a certain way, how can we start approaching them in a different way that someone is more of the louder or the alpha in the room, if you want to call it. So there's a different approach for every one of them. And once you tap into these, going back into the need behind the need and see how we can connect with these individuals and customize the way that works for them, you're going to get a lot of potential for an individual that results into a high performing team in general, because you will see how these connections are there. And one of the first things that I always do when it comes to working with a team is start working in interviews with individuals, because a team is a form of multiple individuals that are working together. So you need to understand first how the individuals' personalities are, how they are working, what are their challenges, what are their opportunities, what are the things that are making them not performing well or performing well, what are they are aspiring to. All these pieces you need to put together and then connect that with the team approach and how the team dynamics are, in order for you to find how we can work on an individual level, in a team level, on a division level, on an organization level, enterprise level, and so on. So these building blocks need to be done the right way in order for us to reach a common goal.
I like this term that you're using, the need behind the need, because a lot of times the need at the surface, maybe we need to help the teams perform or deliver faster results, or whatever the outcome is, and there's not a lot of emphasis or focus on this social awareness or system awareness of how people interact. And that's really what I'm hearing you say, is that we want to step back and look not just at the team level and the organization level as a whole, but also the individual level, because that's really the unit of the team and the organization. And then from there we can start to see there are some missing gaps.
I agree with you. I think it's the most important investment in any organization. And with what a lot of organizations is talking about and how everyone's like the great resignation era, well, we need to understand what's happening there, because it's not only about money, it's about also environment, it's about culture, it's about how the individual is gluing with the team and with the organization. There are a lot of pieces to that than just, I'm giving you a better salary. It's important, but I'm talking about there's a lot of other pieces that you need to look at. And the human-centric approach is very important, because a lot of organizations talk about individuals as resources. So we're not shares. We're human beings. We have feelings, we have families, and unfortunately, because, of how everything is virtual right now, this human-centric is a little bit challenging, because we're all in front of screens. Before that, we had this human interaction that you can have this personable kind of conversation, but this piece somehow is a little bit challenging right now. So yeah, I agree with you. I think the human-centric piece is very important in order to have a success when it comes to the team, the organization, and so on.
It is definitely challenging with the remote work and not able to interact in the same space, even though there is a lot of things that we've tried to do to make the interaction better remotely. But I wanna move to this idea that you highlighted about, like, fulfillment, finding out what the person is interested in. It's not just about like the extrinsic motivation of like salary and all that stuff. That's still important, but it's not what's driving people to do their best work. So I know that you're also an agile facilitator and trainer, and you teach agile topics and other things. Like the skills that you see that can be helpful, or what are some of the skills that some of the organization that you've worked with needs to focus on, or need to start? Like you said, it's an investment. What do organizations need to be investing in terms of growth and skill set?
That's the $1 million question. No, I think there are a couple of things that are pretty important. When you were talking about that, one of the values of the Agile Manifesto actually popped in my mind because how things are getting, as I mentioned to you, very fast paced, very commercialized. We lost the main value of why we're doing what we're doing, and the value that comes in my mind is individual interactions over process and tools. I think we're focusing too much on process and tools that we forgot
Mhm.
about the individual and interactions that are using these process and tools. So we actually flipped everything, and everyone comes in and is like, let's use this type of a framework, let's use this type of tool, and it's shoved for the teams to do all that work. It's an
Mhm.
overhead, they hate it, and it's not giving and providing value for them. So I think we need to look at it from a different perspective. Is when it comes to our organization, we need to understand, look at it backwards. What are we looking at it? Are you a customer centric organization? All right, what's the customer? What are you trying to derive value for? What are your teams are delivering? And start looking into what are the right skills that you need for your individuals in order for them to satisfy the end goal as an organization you're looking to deliver. One of the talks that I had a couple of years ago, I was working to one of the organizations that is a little bit more on the technical side when it comes to delivery. The teams are all developers, even the product owners that were part of the team were technical. But when it comes to the Scrum Master, this person is not technical enough. So this person is not understanding what the team and the individuals are talking about. So one of the things that I want to just pause and highlight is the first thing that I didn't like is the term of a Scrum Master, because a Scrum Master entails a certain framework. And this overcomes the value of what is the right process. Because if I say this is a Scrum Master, this entails that we need to use Scrum. While the team might not be, Scrum framework might not be the right framework for them. They need to use something else. This doesn't mean that Scrum is not good, but Scrum is not a silver bullet. We cannot use it every time. And there is a
Right.
difference between Scrum and Agile. So there is a little bit of, I think this is a different conversation. But what I'm saying over here is changing even the title from a Scrum Master to an Agile lead changes the mindset and the perception a little bit. Putting this person as you are the Agile lead across the team, you need to find what is the right flavor there. And adding to that, this team is delivering technical features. They are working into a certain technical platforms. You as an Agile lead, you need to understand what they are working on. I'm not saying you need to code, but I'm saying you need to understand what they are working on. What are the dependencies upstream, downstream, how the architecture looks like from an overall perspective. So when they have a conversation, you can understand and relate what are the problems these teams are facing from a technical perspective and from a non-technical perspective. And the example that I always put there is if you go into a car dealership and you're going to a salesman and tell them, well, tell me a little bit about this vehicle. And he looks at you as like, I'm really sorry. My only thing that I can do over here is, deliver pizza. So please talk to our manager or talk to the finance person who's going to help you out. It's exactly the same thing. I'm supposed to be an Agile lead. If someone comes in and asks me what your team is doing or what are you working on, I should have this understanding of what's the value of the work that's being delivered and what is being delivered and how it's being delivered as well, in order for me to support and help the team. And this goes back again to circle back to individual interactions over process and tools. I won't be able to understand how the individuals are working if I don't understand what are the type of processes that are using. So
Yeah, there are a lot of key points that I hear from what you just said. The idea of human-centric or customer-centric organizations focusing on the individuals and interactions, which is the first value of the Agile Manifesto. I like to think of this value as dialogue, having a dialogue. Just to, being able to engage in dialogue and understand each other's perspective, which leads us to your second point, which is really the idea is to have some sort of empathy around like what other people are doing on the team. Because if you don't know what they're doing, whether call yourself, Scrum Master or a facilitator or Agile lead, there's not going to be a whole lot that you can empathize with. A lot of times, and that's another challenge in organizations that, there's a lot of roles that are not really aware of other roles. Like if I'm a business analyst or if I'm a tester, I might not be aware of what the developer is doing. And that way, there's constant conflict or tension between us as team members others, where, as you said, if everyone on the team at least understand each other's role and get a better idea of what they're doing and what it entails, they have more empathy towards each other, and that will generate this sort of dialogue and better interactions as a team overall.
100%. At the end of the day, we're all aiming to one goal, but we need to understand what are the roles of each team member there and how they can derive value in order for us to reach that goal. And definitely each one of us as a team can help and support that. But if we're working in our own cocoons and isolated islands, we won't be able to reach these goals. And every one of us is going to be either challenging these roles or not helping each other, complement each other to reach that goal. So yeah, I agree with you 100%.
So the missing piece here, or at least the piece that I'm taking from this, is not just what the skills that they need to learn, but what they also need to unlearn. Some things like the shift in mindset of how we interact with each other, how do we understand each other's roles better. And that's hard to quantify or to make tangible. And most of the time, like you said, we're focusing, that's why there's a lot of focus on the process and tools, because they're visible, they're tangible, we can quantify them. But the other stuff, interactions, individuals' interactions, and how they grow and develop, or a mind shift, is not really quantifiable.
It's a culture piece. It's a mindset shift when it comes to the organization in general. And this piece needs to be bought in from the top leaders in order for you to kind of have that type of change of environment and culture across the organization in general. So it is not overnight. This is a shift in the way that we're looking at transformations. It's the shift. It's a sustainable, actually, if you think about it. And there are a lot of cases that is across the world and in the US where we focused only on the processes couple of years. And once the coaches disappear, everything falls apart or goes back to where it looks like. And I caught, Ahmed Sidki when he says about the rubber band around transformation, which is 100%. It makes perfect sense. I've been in corporate America for a while right now and working for major organizations. And yes, if you don't focus on the culture, things are going to get pushed back to where it's supposed to be. And you're going to go into this vicious cycle and get people again and go through the process and so on and so forth. So it's about these people, individuals, in order for us to have this mindset shift and understand how we can look into the culture and start shifting the culture in order for us to look through how we can work as a team. And as a result, and I put under that 10 lines, find the right process, find the right framework that work for your team in order for you to have this autonomy in order to deliver what you need to deliver. The current organization that I work in, they have this autonomy. We give authority to the team, to the individual, to the leads, in order for them to find what works for them. As long as they're delivering, as long as they are working, as long as they're deriving value, do whatever you want, use whatever thing you want. But we all know what's the end goal, where we're supposed to go. So I think it's all about the culture, Salah.
And that culture, as you said, the mind shift or the mindset shift, it's interesting because as we talk about it, a lot of people or some people I hear talk about, like, the mindset shift as, okay, this sounds nice, it sounds good, but how do you apply this in practice? And I can say, and I don't know if this resonates with you, I mean, we've all gone through this mindset shift. Some was just kind of like we all came through, we're on waterfall projects or projects where things were happening in sequential and people just kind of like passing the baton to the next group or the next person. And then at some point, I don't know when that happened for me, I'm trying to think, but maybe this conversation will refresh our memories here. Like, when did the shift happen when I realized that, okay, this is not really a good way to work. This is not a good way to interact with each other. This is like we're passing the baton to the next person and we don't really have this sort of collaboration. If I think about it, I think it's just emotionally, like, you have to experience it in order to know it. It's not something that you can explain to people.
I think it's exactly what you're saying. For me personally, there are a couple of indications that makes me feel that, okay, there change is coming. I need to start thinking of change. It's a simple one, but it's a good measuring technique for me, is when my alarm clock was ringing and I wake up and I was like, that's another day that I don't want to wake up for. This is a warning sign for me. This means that I'm not interested anymore in what I'm doing, or I'm not understanding, not getting what's happening there. It's a very transactional process. It's a very transactional team. We're passing the baton from one person to another. We're hindering the piece of creativity and innovation when it comes to the team. Everyone is just doing their exact job that they are asked for, or we can just be a little bit harsh. They are commanded to do. And you're not giving this, our brains, we are amazing creatures. We built everything around us over here. So there is a reason we're on Earth. There's a reason each one of us is there. And there is a piece that we need to tap into in order to get this piece there. And the other piece that I always, I think organizations and leaders need to understand, there's a reason that you hired this person into your company. You found something that is different that made this person across from all these different resumes and interviews to hire this person. So make sure to tap and get what this person can add to your team.
Yeah, it reminded me of the quote by I think Steve Jobs that said, like, we hire people to tell us what to do, not to tell them what to do, right? So that's one thing that this is reminding me of. And then the other thing is the work of Daniel Pink on motivation, where the three, or the drive, or the surprising truth about what motivates us, and one of them is purpose. So when you're saying, like, okay, I don't want to get up when the alarm goes off, and here we go again, it's Groundhog Day, I don't want to get out of bed. It's because maybe there's no purpose, or it's just like, we're you're told what to do, or we're told what to do as a team, and purpose is not clear. And then another thing is autonomy is another one of those three things that Daniel Pink wrote about in his book, Drive. Autonomy. If we don't have sort of a way to decide for ourselves, then we lose that sort of motivation. It's like, I want to just keep pushing the alarm, or and
snoozing it
exactly. for some time, and because I'm just it's not I'm not motivated to get back to what I'm doing.
Exactly. And to add to that, actually, Salah, is psychological safety. Because, we as human beings, we make mistakes, and mistakes happen, but we need to learn from these mistakes and see how we can find the opportunities to make things better. So if you don't have psychological safety across the organization, across the team, that you can't express yourself or make mistakes, I'm not saying that, life is a chaos. I'm saying that things happen. So if you don't have this piece of psychological safety as well, it blocks creativity and innovation, because everyone is walking on eggshells to make sure things are moving the way it's supposed to move. And, adding one piece, I was listening to a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and someone was talking about what's driving you to do what you're doing. This person is working in a startup, and the other person, the one that he owns the startup, looked at him and mentioned, "Are you a Friday person or a Monday person?" So the guy looked at him like, "What are you talking about?" So he told him, "This is what driving me to love my job. If you're a Friday person and you're looking for each Friday to come through for the weekend, then you need to revisit the purpose of what you're doing, just to make sure if you're doing something that you like. If you're looking forward to a Monday and you want to start the week, then what you're doing is deriving purpose to you, and you like what you're working on." And I love that, because it makes perfect sense. And everyone, when Friday comes, you can see the smile, and everyone can wait to turn off and log off and enjoy. And when it comes to Monday, you can see all these faces, and everyone is like, "Yeah, it's Monday," So it's an interesting analogy.
That's another great way to look at it. The alarm is a good way to notice, and then also the Monday, Friday is another good idea to just think about, like, am I looking forward to Monday, or am I looking forward to Friday? And again, the idea of like having a purpose and autonomy. And then the third one was mastery, which we talked about a little bit, about like the skills. People wants to improve, and if they're constantly told what to do, they're not really exercising any creative thinking or problem solving, or feeling like they're contributing, because they're not refining their skills. They're just like, it becomes stagnant, and we're just doing the same thing over and over. So I guess maybe that leads us to what are some ways to be more of the Monday people then? What have you seen, or maybe from your experience, what do you think leads to that thinking of, okay, it's Monday, I can't wait to go back and then do what I've been doing?
I think the first thing, that if you're looking at actionable pieces that we need to look at, I think the first piece is understand the purpose of what you're working on. You need to know, as an individual, how can you contribute to your team, to your organization, to your division, to yourself even? what are the skill sets that you need to build in the coming 6 months or so? What are the things that you can help your team to work on? But in order for you to understand and find this purpose, you need to first understand what the team's doing. So if you can't answer the question right now, and the old saying is like your elevator speech, if you can't tell me in a couple of seconds as an 8-year-old what you're doing, then you need to understand more what your team and what the project they're working on is. So understand what you're working on. Start looking at a purpose. What are the things that you can add in order to provide value to your team, your organization, yourself, and so on? Find a mentor. Find someone that you look up to in order for this person to guide you and support you, in order for you to hold you accountable on what you want to do, to make sure that you're moving forward. A simple thing that I'm doing, because of the pandemic, I gained a lot of weight. So I decided a couple of months ago, my son, actually, I was playing with him and I found, I was like, yeah, I'm getting old. I'm actually running out of breath and I'm getting really tired. I didn't like that. So my son is actually the one who's holding me accountable right now. Me and him, we teamed up and we're going into CrossFit, and I'm having a diet. And every time we're going to the training, we're actually comparing weights and the number of sets that we're doing. And I'm holding him accountable to make sure that he is actually wants to bulk up a little bit, and I want to lose weight. So we're actually working together. It's a good team. I'm not talking about a mentor-mentee type of thing, but it's more of we're working together as a team in order to reach where you reach. So find a mentor that you can you look up to help you out, or team up with someone who has a common goal in order to work through that, and try to find your Monday.
That's you're finding. I've heard this often with the guests on this podcast, like the idea of finding a coach, finding a mentor, finding someone to be able to help you see the blind spots, because I think we all have them, and if your goal is to have this sort of purpose, or that's going to help you get motivated. And also this idea of mastery, what is it that you want to master? And if you don't know, it's gonna be very difficult to find your Monday, like you said. It's gonna be just cruising along and just not really feeling that you're going anywhere. I usually use the metaphors like running on a treadmill. It's just keep running, but you're not getting anywhere. And as you said, that having that sort of accountability partner or mentor or coach can help you identify those, or some sort of exercises that you can do to bring more self-awareness. Just like you said, I mean, you noticed that you needed to lose weight, you needed to go to the gym, and you noticed that because you were running out of breath or trying to do some exercise, and that got you thinking. So noticing these things, and then becoming aware, and then choosing to do something about them. So I know we have a few minutes. I wanna shift gear here. You mentioned the word culture several times. We both worked in different parts of the world. You certainly have more than I did, but the idea, like, you worked in Egypt, you worked in Dubai, you worked in the US. What's similar or different about the culture in terms of what we're talking about, like this idea of learning, finding purpose? Is this different in other places or the same? What's your experience?
Yeah, I think going back to the beginning of our podcast is the connection and the earning trust piece. If I go to a non-English speaking country and start speaking in English with them in order to help them and coach them, there's no connection whatsoever there. So I remember one of the trainings that I did, I went actually to Saudi Arabia, and I was training a financial organization over there. And the individuals, one of the things that they mentioned to me was just fascinating, just thinking about it. And the person mentioned is speaking in English and Arabic and training us in two languages, because they speak Arabic over there, was kind of a mind shift for them, was something that helped them a lot, because I started relating some examples, speaking with them the same language they are speaking. So the knowledge, the communication between us was streamlined in a better way. So they said, we benefited a lot when you started translating some stuff to us in order for us to understand the concepts and the theories and connect that to us. So I think from a culture perspective, if you as a person working internationally and working with any organization across the world, the first thing you need to understand is the human interaction, going back into the human-centric approach. There are certain pieces that might be offensive in a certain country and might not be offensive in another one. So you need to understand how the individuals that you're working with interact and work together. Language is pretty important. And then understanding the current state of how the organization or individuals understanding what they're aspiring to in order to connect with them. So it was mind blowing with me. Like, it was not about the material, it's about actually how I was speaking and presenting. That was the piece that everyone caught their attention.
I think we can use this language literally or also metaphorically in many ways.
Exactly.
But yeah, understanding the language, maybe speaking the same language can help people can understand better. Like you said, there are some things that are appropriate, not appropriate in different cultures. So having that sort of awareness and respect can create this connection and trust. So that's really important. I think,
And sorry to interrupt, actually, Salah, it's
go
actually
ahead.
not even, if you think about it, it's not only even international. The more I think about it, is actually how diverse we are within our organizations, within our teams, within, the US. We need to respect and make sure to connect with the right language metaphorically here to make sure that we all work as a team together, because across my experience, I'm pretty sure a lot of people had that before, is you go in and you find people cringing because someone put a comment out or mentioned something that might offend someone else. So respect diversity and understanding how inclusive we are all as a team is pretty important for us to be a high performing team within the US and looking at it internationally as well.
I think it comes down to being human, as we were talking about, like the human element. We share a lot of things around purpose, autonomy, mastery. I'm sure you've seen that in whether it's in the US or Egypt or any other place. There's a drive to get better at something, right? There is, that's a human need that no matter where you go, I think it's there. People want to have meaning or meaningful work. They want their work to be more fulfilling. They want to be able to add value or contribute to an outcome or purpose. So I think what you're saying is very important to notice these things. And then there are the nuances, as you mentioned, like, how do you communicate in a language that people understand, literally and metaphorically,
Exactly.
and help them notice some of the things that there are some gaps that they could focus on. Like if they need to grow in certain area or something is missing, as a coach, you can help them do that. So what is something you want to leave us with, or, what are the next, what's the next thing that you want to point to before we wrap up?
I think if we go around the theme that we had for the podcast is find your Monday. I think you need to find your Monday as an individual and see the purpose-driven piece for you. I think it's important for you to see what motivates you, what makes you better. How can you support your team in order to derive value and be a really high-performing team? Think more and let it sink, individual interactions over processing tools. Just not from an Agile manifesto, but really just let that sink a little bit and think how you can look into the human-centric piece when it comes to us as human beings, as individuals, in order for us to work together better and to perform better. Because I think we all, with the era that we are in right now, when it comes to the work and how things are extremely fast-paced, we live to work. I think we need to shift that a little bit. I'm sorry, we work, we live to work. Yeah, that's the right piece. I think we need to work to live. We need to find a way that we're just working in order to enjoy our life, in order to make things better for us, for our family, for our significant others. So make sure that you understand what are the priorities for you, because you don't want to wake up one day and everything moved and you've been on a Friday person for a very long
Right.
time.
Yeah. I love that theme. Find your Monday. That's applicable to individuals, teams, and organizations as well. Because I think if everyone is a Friday person in an organization, imagine what that would be like to work
Exactly.
in that organization. But yeah, I one thing I want to mention that, speaking of language, I think we're both trying to collaborate on doing a podcast in Arabic. So hopefully, we can make this happen. And I really enjoyed the conversation. Where can people find more about you and your work or connect with you?
I think LinkedIn might be our connection over here. So just search for Mohab Al Hakim. You're gonna find two, by the way. And I'm actually a very close friend with the other Mohab. He lives in Canada, but I'm the one who lives in the US. So yeah, I think we can connect from there and start from there. Yeah.
Yes. By the way, the El Hakim in Arabic means the wise one, right? So appreciate your wisdom today and your insights. And it's been a pleasure to speak with you.
Same here, Salah. Pleasure was all mine. I enjoyed the podcast and looking forward for more. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for listening. I hope this conversation gave you something to think about or take action on. Remember, take action and get clarity, then repeat.